I was 57 years old when I discovered that everything I thought I knew about life was wrong. Standing in my empty apartment in Cleveland, holding an eviction notice with shaking hands, I whispered to the universe, "If you're real, if any of this means anything, I need a sign." What happened next didn't just change my life. It rewrote everything I believed about what's possible when you think it's too late. My name is Margaret, and for most of my life, I was the person everyone came to for advice. I was the dependable one, the responsible one, the one who had it all figured out. I raised 3 beautiful children as a single mother after my husband left when I was 32. I worked 2 jobs, days as a medical secretary, evenings cleaning offices, just to keep food on the table and clothes on their backs. For 25 years, I lived paycheck to paycheck, but I told myself it was temporary. Once the kids are grown, I'd whisper to myself while folding laundry at midnight, once they're settled, then I'll focus on me. I had dreams, you know. I wanted to be a writer. I had notebooks full of stories, poems, and half-finished novels tucked away in my bedroom closet, like precious secrets. But life has a way of making you forget your dreams. The kids grew up, moved away, started their own families. And suddenly, I found myself in my mid-50s, alone, and more lost than I'd ever been. The medical office where I'd worked for 15 years downsized. At 55, nobody wants to hire you. They don't say it outright, of course, but you see it in their eyes. That look that says you're expired, used up, past your prime. The unemployment benefits ran out. My savings, what little I had, disappeared faster than morning mist. I sold my furniture piece by piece, watched my life shrink down to the essentials, then watched those disappear too. The worst part wasn't the empty refrigerator or the overdue bills stacked on my kitchen table. The worst part was the silence in my head where hope used to live. That Tuesday morning in March, when I found the eviction notice taped to my door, something inside me cracked open. Not broke, cracked open. There's a difference. Breaking implies destruction, but cracking open, that's where the light gets in. I sat on my living room floor, the same floor where my children had taken their first steps, where we'd had countless movie nights and homework sessions, and I cried. Not the pretty tears you see in movies, but the ugly, raw kind that come from somewhere deep in your soul. I cried for the dreams I'd abandoned, for the woman I used to be, for the future that seemed impossible. But then, in that moment of complete surrender, something shifted. Maybe it was desperation, maybe it was grace, but I heard myself speaking out loud to the empty room. Universe, God, whatever you are, I'm listening, I'm ready. I don't know what I'm ready for, but I'm ready. The next day, walking through the library because it was warm and free, I noticed a book that had been misshelved in the biography section. The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. I'd heard of it, of course, but I'd always dismissed it as wishful thinking for people who didn't understand how hard life really was. But standing there with nothing left to lose, I thought, why not? I found a quiet corner and started reading. The words felt like they were speaking directly to me. You have the power to change everything. At first, my logical mind rebelled. This was nonsense. If I had the power to change everything, wouldn't I have done it already? But something deeper, something that had been sleeping inside me for decades, began to stir. I read about thoughts becoming things, about gratitude, about visualization. I read testimonies of people who had transformed their lives, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not the naive hope of youth, but the seasoned hope of someone who's been through the fire and is ready to rebuild from the ashes. That night, in my nearly empty apartment, I decided to try. I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. I started with gratitude, not for the big things I didn't have, but for the small things I did. I was grateful for the roof still over my head for a few more days. I was grateful for my health, for my sharp mind, for the way the afternoon sunlight still fell across my kitchen table. I wrote in an old composition notebook I found in a box. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for the strength to endure. Thank you for the possibility of something better. My handwriting looked shaky at first, uncertain, like I was writing in a foreign language. Then came the visualizations. Sitting on my bedroom floor with my eyes closed, I tried to imagine a different life. At first, all I could see was darkness, the weight of decades of struggle pressing down on me. But gradually, images began to form. I saw myself writing, not in secret, hidden notebooks, but openly, proudly. I saw myself in a small, cozy apartment filled with books and plants. I saw myself smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in years. The affirmations felt ridiculous at first. Standing in front of my bathroom mirror, looking at my tired face and gray hair, saying, "I am worthy of abundance," felt like lying. But I kept going. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of success. I am worthy of joy. Each day, the words felt a little less foreign, a little more possible. But let me be honest with you. It wasn't a straight path from despair to triumph. There were days when I felt like a fool, a 57-year-old woman playing pretend with affirmations and vision boards made from magazine cutouts I'd found in the library's recycling bin. There were nights when I lay awake, wondering if I was losing my mind, if this was just another way of avoiding the harsh reality of my situation. The eviction notice was still there. The bills were still overdue. My phone still rang with calls from creditors. The physical world hadn't changed, but something inside me was shifting. I began to notice things I'd never paid attention to before. The way opportunities seemed to present themselves in the most unexpected ways. The way people responded differently to me when I carried myself with even a tiny bit more confidence. 3 weeks into my practice, doubt hit me like a tidal wave. I was walking past my old office building, and I saw my former co-workers through the window, going about their day without me. The familiar pang of being forgotten, of being disposable, almost knocked me to my knees. I stood there on the sidewalk, people rushing past me, and I almost gave up everything I'd been working toward. "This is ridiculous," I whispered to myself. "You're too old, Margaret. You missed your chance. This new age stuff is for young people with their whole lives ahead of them." But then I remembered something I'd read. The universe doesn't know your age. It only knows your vibration. The shift began with a conversation I overheard in a coffee shop. I was nursing a single cup of coffee, my one daily luxury, when I heard 2 women at the next table talking about a local writing group that met every Thursday evening. One of them mentioned they were looking for someone to help coordinate their newsletter and social media presence. 6 months earlier, I would have convinced myself I wasn't qualified, that I was too old to learn new skills. But something in me had changed. Before I could talk myself out of it, I walked over and introduced myself. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I couldn't help but overhear. "I'm a writer, and I have experience with organization and communication. Would you mind if I asked about that position?" Sarah, a woman about my age with kind eyes and laugh lines, smiled warmly. "We'd love to talk with you. Can you come to our meeting this Thursday?" As I walked home that day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: synchronicity. It was as if the universe had orchestrated that exact moment, placed me in that exact chair, at that exact time. This wasn't coincidence, this was response. The writing group became my anchor. Every Thursday evening, I sat in a circle with 12 other people who shared my love of words and stories. For the first time in decades, I wasn't defined by my struggles or my age. I was simply Margaret, the woman with interesting stories and a gift for organizing chaos. My daily practice evolved. Morning gratitude became as natural as brushing my teeth. I'd wake up and immediately list 3 things I was grateful for, no matter how my day had ended the night before. Visualization became my evening ritual. I'd lie in bed and see myself not just surviving, but thriving. I began to envision specific scenarios, speaking at writing conferences, seeing my name on the cover of a published book, living in a space that felt like home. The affirmations became more sophisticated too. Instead of generic statements, I crafted affirmations that spoke to my specific fears and dreams. I am worthy of recognition for my talents. My age is an asset, not a liability. My experiences have prepared me for this moment. The universe is conspiring in my favor. Within 2 months of joining the writing group, small miracles began appearing everywhere. The newsletter I created for the group got noticed by a local arts magazine. They offered me freelance work, not much money, but enough to buy groceries without counting every penny. Sarah, from the coffee shop conversation, became a genuine friend. She had connections in the publishing world and began introducing me to editors and agents who specialized in memoirs and women's fiction. "You have stories that need to be told," she'd say. And for the first time, I believed her. But the most profound change was happening inside me. I started walking differently, talking differently. I began to see myself not as a woman whose life was over, but as someone whose real life was just beginning. The mirror reflected back someone I barely recognized. Still the same face, still the same gray hair, but the eyes were different. They held light again. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday evening in October. Our writing group was sharing pieces we'd been working on, and I decided to read something I'd never shared with anyone. A story about starting over at 57, about discovering that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. As I read, I watched the faces around the circle. Some people were crying. Others were nodding with recognition. When I finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Sarah spoke up. "Margaret, this isn't just a story. This is a book. This is the book that will help thousands of women who think it's too late for them." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from worry, but from excitement. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd stacked overdue bills just months before, and I wrote until dawn. The words poured out of me like they'd been waiting their whole lives to be born. Within a week of that reading, Sarah had connected me with an agent who specialized in inspirational memoirs. The agent, a woman named Linda, called me on a Tuesday morning. "I've heard about your story," she said. "I'd like to represent you." Everything began moving at a pace that felt both miraculous and natural. The book proposal was finished within a month. Linda sent it to publishers, and within 6 weeks, we had not 1, but 3 offers. The advance wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough to move into a small apartment in a neighborhood I'd always admired but never thought I could afford. But more than the external changes, I was witnessing the transformation of my inner world. I began to understand that the law of attraction wasn't about wishing for things and having them magically appear. It was about aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with the version of yourself you wanted to become. It was about recognizing opportunities when they presented themselves and having the courage to act on them. As my book took shape, I began speaking at local libraries and community centers about starting over later in life. At first, I spoke to small groups, sometimes just 5 or 6 people. But word began to spread. Women in their 50s, 60s, even 70s began reaching out to me, sharing their own stories of feeling invisible, forgotten, past their prime. I realized that my journey wasn't just about my own transformation. It was about giving voice to a generation of women who had been told their stories didn't matter anymore, that their dreams had expiration dates. Through my writing and speaking, I was helping others remember their own power. The synchronicities multiplied. Every time I needed something, a contact, an opportunity, encouragement, it appeared. Not always in the way I expected, but always in the way I needed. I began to trust this flow, to expect miracles while taking inspired action. When Never Too Late, Lessons in Starting Over at 57 was published, I held the book in my hands and wept. Not from sadness this time, but from pure joy. There was my name on the cover, just as I'd visualized it months before. There was my story, transformed from private pain into public inspiration. The book launch was held at the same library where I'd first discovered The Secret. The room was packed with people of all ages, but especially women my age and older. As I looked out at their faces that reflected my own journey from despair to hope, I understood the deeper purpose of everything I'd been through. During the Q&A, an 83-year-old woman named Dorothy raised her hand. "I thought it was too late for me to pursue my dream of painting," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Your book made me realize that I still have time." 6 months later, Dorothy had her first art show at a local gallery. Today, at 59, I live in a beautiful one-bedroom apartment filled with books, plants, and artwork created by women who, like me, discovered their talents later in life. I've written 3 more books. I speak regularly at conferences about reinvention and the power of starting over. I've appeared on podcasts and radio shows, sharing my message that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. But the most profound change isn't in my external circumstances. It's in how I relate to life itself. I've learned to recognize the voice of intuition, to trust the subtle nudges that guide me toward opportunities and connections. I've learned that gratitude isn't just a practice, it's a way of being that opens doors you didn't even know existed. I've learned that visualization isn't wishful thinking, it's preparation. When you can see something clearly in your mind, when you can feel it in your body, you begin to vibrate at the frequency of that reality. And the universe, in its infinite wisdom, begins to rearrange circumstances to match that vibration. What I've come to understand is that the law of attraction isn't magic. It's physics. When you change your thoughts, you change your neural pathways. When you change your neural pathways, you change your behavior. When you change your behavior, you change your results. When you change your results, you change your reality. At 57, my brain was still capable of creating new neural pathways. My heart was still capable of believing in possibilities. My spirit was still capable of dreaming dreams. Age hadn't disqualified me from transformation. It had prepared me for it. All those years of struggle, all those experiences of loss and resilience had given me the wisdom to recognize truth when I found it and the courage to act on it. I'm not going to tell you that every day is perfect now. Life still has its challenges, its disappointments, its moments of doubt, but I face them from a fundamentally different place. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" I ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of seeing obstacles, I look for opportunities. Instead of focusing on what I've lost, I celebrate what I'm becoming. My morning routine still includes gratitude, visualization, and affirmations. But now they're not desperate attempts to change my circumstances. They're celebrations of the life I'm creating. I wake up each day knowing that I am the author of my own story, and I still have many chapters left to write. I've learned that manifestation isn't about getting what you want. It's about becoming who you need to be to receive what's meant for you. Sometimes what you think you want isn't what you actually need, and the universe is wise enough to give you what serves your highest good. If you're listening to this and you're thinking it's too late for you, let me tell you something. You're wrong. If you're 40, 50, 60, 70, or beyond, and you're thinking your best days are behind you, you're wrong. If you believe that dreams have expiration dates or that the universe has forgotten about you, you're wrong. Your age is not a limitation. It's an advantage. You have wisdom that can only come from experience. You have resilience that has been tested and proven. You have stories that can inspire others. You have gifts that the world is waiting for, even if you've forgotten what they are. The universe doesn't care about your age, your past mistakes, your current circumstances, or what other people think is possible for you. The universe only cares about one thing: your willingness to believe in something better and to take action in alignment with that belief. The most powerful moment in your life is right now. Not when you were younger, not when you have more money, not when you lose weight, or when your kids are grown, or when you retire. Right now. This moment is pregnant with infinite possibilities. This moment is your point of power. You don't need anyone's permission to start over. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing to take the first step, and then the next one, and then the next one. The path will reveal itself as you walk it. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust yourself. Most importantly, trust that the universe is not done with you yet. Your greatest chapters may still be unwritten. Your most important contributions may still be unmade. Your deepest joy may still be undiscovered. As I finish sharing my story with you, I'm sitting in my home office, looking out at a garden I planted last spring. The roses are blooming. Roses I planted when I was 58, roses that many people said would take too long to establish. They're beautiful, and they're just beginning to reach their full potential. That's what life is like when you discover it's never too late. You plant seeds of possibility, you nurture them with faith and action, and you watch them bloom in their perfect timing. Some seeds take longer than others, but the harvest is always worth the wait. I am living proof that transformation is possible at any age. I am living proof that the universe is always conspiring in your favor, even when it doesn't feel like it. I am living proof that your story is not over until you decide it's over. And even then, you can always start a new chapter. The woman who stood in that empty apartment in Cleveland, holding an eviction notice with shaking hands, could never have imagined the life I'm living now. But she had something that made it all possible. She was willing to believe in something bigger than her current circumstances. She was willing to ask for help. She was willing to try. That's all it takes. A willingness to believe. A willingness to try. A willingness to start where you are with what you have and trust that it's enough. Because it is enough. You are enough. And it's never, ever too late. If this story has touched your heart, if you feel that spark of possibility igniting within you, I want you to do something right now. In the comments below, I want you to write 3 simple words. I am ready. Ready for what? Ready for whatever the universe has in store for you. Ready to believe in yourself again. Ready to start where you are. Ready to trust that your best days are not behind you, but ahead of you. And if you believe, like I do, that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who thinks they've missed their chance, someone who feels invisible, someone who has forgotten their own power. Your story matters. Your dreams matter. You matter. And the world is waiting for what only you can give. Remember, the universe is always listening, and it's never too late to start again. I am ready. Are you?